Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Book Talk Tuesdays. I'm Miss Jessica, and I'm a youth and teen librarian at the Chelsea District Library, and I have a special guest and my coworker here with me today.
I'm Stacy Comfort. I'm the teen librarian at the Chelsea District Library.
And we are super excited today because this episode is all about Authors in Chelsea, which is our author visit program. And this year, just like everything else this year, it's going to be a little bit different. We are going to have Authors in Chelsea as a virtual program. So Chelsea students are going to hear from authors during the school day on March 16th and 17th. And then on the evening of March 16th, everybody in the community is invited to sign up and get the Zoom link for a super special Meet the Authors live presentation between our authors Kirby Larson and Alyssa and Capicilli. And today on Book Talk Tuesdays, we are going to share 6 books by author Kirby Larson that we think you should read before you get to meet her on Zoom in March. My first book is called Dash, and it's part of the Dogs of World War II series that Kirby writes. Now, Kirby writes almost exclusively historical fiction, and this book is no different. It is historical fiction, and it tells the story of a very sad piece of American history when thousands of Japanese Americans were torn from their homes and forced to live in incarceration camps for several years during World War II. They had to leave almost everything behind: their houses, their family and friends, their jobs and school, and even their pets. So this book focuses on a girl named Mitzi Kashino, and her family is really, really close. She lives with her mom and her dad, her grandma, and her older brother. Life in the camp is just really hard on everyone. It's dirty, there's dust everywhere, and when it rains, that dust turns into mud. The food is kind of gross. It's kind of what you would expect at a big camp that was just thrown together. And it's boring. School isn't set up yet. There's nothing to do. She couldn't bring very many things with her. And she's bored a lot of the time. At camp, it seems like her family is kind of falling apart. Her brother falls in with the wrong kind of crowd. He gets into a little bit of trouble. And she just really finds herself struggling with school and really missing her friends and, of course, her dog, Dash. She had to leave Dash behind with a neighbor in Seattle when they moved to the camp. Life, though, becomes a little bit more bearable at camp when she starts receiving letters from Dash. They're really written by her neighbor, and she knows that. And she sort of feels a connection with the outside world again and thinks that maybe she might be able to make it through. So my favorite part about Kirby's books is how carefully she crafts the settings and all of the research does. She talks to people who experienced life in the camp. She really does her research when she writes these books. And this stands out especially in Dash.
I have Hattie Big Sky and Hattie Ever After. They're a two-book set. And you really need to read Big Sky before you read Ever After, otherwise you'll be very confused. So Hattie Big Sky was actually born out of Kirby Larson's family history. She actually had relatives that were homesteaders, and that is what Hattie Big Sky is about. Hattie is an orphan girl who's 16 years old, and she has most of her life just been shoved on different relatives. Most of them don't really want her. So in 1918, just after America entered World War I, an old uncle that she's never met dies and leaves her his land in Montana. So she has to live on the land. She has to make improvements to the house, which she says is only about as big as like a bedroom. And she has to build fencing and farm the land, and it all has to be done to the way the government wanted it done in less than a year. Wow. So she has some friends who are neighbors and some interesting people in the city, like a guy named Rooster who smells a whole lot and plays chess. And she might be able to do it. So interspersed throughout the book, she's writing letters to her friend Charlie, who is overseas fighting in the war, and to the last uncle that she lived with in Iowa.
And that book, it won a very special award, didn't it?
It won the Newbery Honor Award.
And that was her first book that she wrote, and she won the Newbery Honor. That's just incredible. Yeah. The second book I read is Nubs, The True Story of a Mutt, a Marine, and a Miracle. And this is actually a nonfiction book. So it is... it's based on factual information, just like the title says, the true story of a Marine and a miracle. And Nubs is about a Marine, Major Brian Dennis, who served in Iraq when he discovered a dog with cut up ears at a fort that his group was visiting. And Major Dennis only visits the fort for a few days at a time. It's not really on a set schedule. He's not there very often, but every time when he's there, he sees this dog and names him Nubs because of his little stubby ears. And he and Nubs really form a bond, which is something that they're not really supposed to do. He's actually not allowed to have pets when when Marines are working in war zones. They are not supposed to get attached to animals or have pets with them. But it kind of seems like this is just fated to happen. They're meant to be together. There's even a point in their story where Major Dennis's group has traveled 70 miles away from the fort, and Nubs actually follows on foot and shows up 2 days later. He's all skinny, he needs food and water, and he needs a bath pretty badly. That is sort of the point where they realize that they're just meant to be together. So some more things happen, and Major Dennis is actually able to get Nubs safely to America. And I don't want to tell you too much because it's just a really wonderful story. There's tons of pictures throughout this book. I really, really enjoyed all the photographs and all the pictures that were included. And it's just truly an amazing story.
The second book is Hattie Ever After, which we'll be reading for the Teen Pizza and Paperbacks Book Club in March. May or may not contain pizza. And right after the events of Hattie Big Sky, Hattie is working as a maid in a boarding house. And she's given the opportunity by a drama troupe, a bunch of actors, to go to California. And she's been reading the newspaper articles of Nellie Bly and Ida Tarbell, who are really famous journalists of the time. Nellie Bly is best known for going into an insane asylum for 10 days to show people what the conditions were back in those days. It's real scary stuff. So she also wants to be an investigative journalist, and she wants to write for a newspaper. So she goes to California and she's uncovering all kinds of secrets about things that are happening in the world and her family history. And all along, she's getting notes and letters from Charlie, who's come back from the war, and he wants her to settle down and marry him and go live in Seattle.
That sounds really exciting. So it sounds like the first one is more about her life on the farm, but the second one is more of like a travel or like a journey story, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's nice. It's nice to see a familiar character in two very different types of stories.
Hattie Ever After came up probably after people said, you know what, Hattie Big Sky is really good. We really love this heroine. Please tell us more about what happens to her.
Yeah. I love it when you get that unexpected, oh, I do get to find out what happens next. So my next book is another one from the Dogs of World War II series, and it's called Liberty. And it's about a boy named Fish who lives in New Orleans in the 1940s. And when he was younger, Fish had polio. So he has a limp and he struggles with certain physical activities like riding a bike, although he does teach himself how to ride a bike again, which I thought was really cool. He has some special ways of getting onto the bike that don't hurt his leg as much. And he's always inventing all kinds of contraptions. So if you are a builder, if you like to make things and build with Lego and do all kinds of stuff with your hands, you are going to really find a friend in Fish because he likes to do that too. And his latest invention actually leads him and his neighbor friend Olympia to find a stray dog. And she's a beautiful dog. She must be some sort of hunting breed. They're not really sure. And Fish names her Liberty and starts hiding away food scraps so that he can feed her and help her stay healthy. Fish's dad is off fighting in World War II in Europe, and his older sister works at the Higgins Boatyard, which is very famous in New Orleans and in that area because they built huge ships that helped the Allied forces win World War II. So that area was very important in our success in World War II. There's some other things going on in their town, and a mean neighbor actually steals Liberty and keeps her tied up on his property, even though she's a stray dog and technically doesn't belong to anyone. And when Fish sees how she's being treated, he's absolutely determined to help free her. Even if it means accepting the help of a German prisoner of war that has been stationed nearby. So there's actually two different plot lines going on, and you get to see the perspective of both Fish for the majority of the story, as well as this German soldier who has been captured and brought to America as a prisoner of war. So it's a good one.
The next book I have is Audacity Jones to the Rescue. And Audacity is a wayward girl, capital W, capital G, which means difficult to control or predict. And though she's made friends with some of the other girls at Miss Maisie's school for wayward girls, she's really would rather leave and go have other adventures and read all the books in the library. I know what that feels like. So there's a Commodore. He's a high-ranking Navy officer. He comes to visit every year and gives them money and eclairs, which are very special. But he says that he needs an orphan, specifically an orphan, someone who doesn't have parents, for secret missions. And she absolutely volunteers. She definitely lives up to her name. Audacity means shameless or bold. And while she's adventuring around the White House during the reign of William Taft. The book is really, really fun, and it's told from a lot of different viewpoints, Audacity, obviously, but also her cat, Miniver. She likes to remind the reader very often that everything will turn out splendid. If it's not splendid, it's not the end.
That is going to be the book we read for Tween Book Club on March 9th. So if you aren't signed up for that yet, you can contact a librarian and we'll help you get all signed up for that. So we're going to read Audacity Jones to the Rescue for Tween Book Club.
I have Code Word Courage, there we go, which is also a Dogs of World War II book. I'm usually not really big on dog books because I have my own dog and I hate it when animals die in books or movies, which, fun fact to all of our watchers out there, there's a website called doesthedogdie.com and it'll tell you in any movie or book if the dog dies. So the dog in this book, which is a stray named Bear, he remains pretty safe. He is taken in by a Navajo soldier named Denny after Army boot camp. And Denny is a friend of Billy's older brother. They come home together and then they have to go back out to serve in the Army. And so they leave Bear with Billy. And Billy unfortunately gets bullied a whole lot by the kids in her neighborhood. And having Bear to take care of and be a friend with really helps her make some friends in the neighborhood with some other kids and workers in the neighborhood. So that's really nice. A little note about Denny is that he's a Navajo, which means that he's an American Indian from Arizona, Utah, or New Mexico. And because he speaks the Navajo language, which is really not a very popular language at the time, it probably is even less popular now, he gets to be a code talker, which means he gets to send secret messages for the Army back and forth because so few people understand the language. It's like a code all by itself. So this is the fourth book of Dogs of World War II, which has Duke, Dash, and Liberty, but you don't have to read them in any specific order.
I love historical fiction, as you know. And normally when we hear about spies and code breaking and the radioed messages and all of that, we're a lot of times focused on very much on stories that are happening on the ground in Europe, usually in France, with the resistance and the stolen radios and all that. So to me, it was really fascinating to hear that Kirby had written a book about what that looks like, kind of from the American viewpoint and what we were doing to help with the war efforts. So
Hattie Big Sky she's in America and her friend Charlie is in Europe. So we get to see both sides.
Yeah, Kirby does such a great job with that for sure. So I hope that you enjoyed hearing about these books. These are just a handful of the books that Kirby has written, and we have all of them available at the library. You can check out a physical book or a book on CD. You can also download audiobooks from the Hoopla app, and you can download ebooks and some audio from the Libby app or Overdrive website. And we can help you do that if you're not sure how to get those ebooks. You can call the library at 734-475-8732, extension 219, or email us at ref@chelseadistrictlibrary.org. Thanks for joining me, Stacy, and thanks everyone for watching.